So I got in last night. One of the problems with the sun being in my eyes was that I couldn't tell what color the channel markers were, so that made life interesting. This morning, gorgeous sunrise. Yarna had beat me in by about 12 hours. He caught the morning tide. So him and I are going ashore to explore. First we're gonna stretch our little legs on the beach, and then we're gonna go dive on our moorings and then go for a snorkel. Hey dudes, welcome to my channel. I'm single-handing my Grimed 27 gecko around the world. Recently, I just finished a 41-day solo passage from Panama to the Marquesas, which are in French Polynesia. I left from Maine a year and a half ago, solo sailed through the Caribbean, the Panama Canal, and now I'm finally in the Pacific, which is a place I've dreamed of sailing since I was a kid. On board the Gek, I have no fridge, water maker, fancy electronics, and my dinghy is a rowboat with a sail rig. Currently, my videos lag a couple months behind where I am in real space and time, so if you're interested in seeing what I'm doing in my daily life, check out my Instagram @BoatLizard to see projects and experiences that I'm having right now. Otherwise, enjoy this video. The water here is insanely clear. I've never seen anything like it. We put the dinghy up on the beach and now we're just in this little pool of warm water that leads out to the ocean. We decided to bring the dinghy with us into the little pool. Found a nice chunk of dead coral to tie the painter through to use it as a little mooring so that we can leave the dinghy here and then walk up and see what the ocean side of the atoll has to offer. This is like being in a playground for us. The Marquesas were beautiful in the land nature, but in the Tuamotus, it's all about the water life. Yeah, that looks awesome. Yeah, it's gonna work really well. Here we go, towards the ocean. Look at the colors. There must be really specific algae that lives right here. Cool fact about French Polynesia. It consists of 3 main groups of islands, the Marquesas, the Tuamotus, and the Societies. Each group is separated by 200 to 500 miles from the other ones, and each one of the groups represents a different moment in geological time. Each island group gives us clues of what happens to a volcano that is no longer volcanoing, starting with the youngest, which is the Marquesas. The Marquesas still have their stunningly tall mountain peaks leading into very deep anchorages. It's the first stage of a slowly eroding volcano. They obviously are no longer active for a very long period of time, but not a ton of erosion has taken place, and there are no coral reefs around the islands. Sail about 800 miles downwind and you will come to the Society Islands, which are the westernmost island group in French Polynesia. These are the second stage of volcano decay. The protective barrier reefs have begun to slowly grow up around the mountains, which are much lower and more eroded. This means that you can have the protection of a reef when you're anchoring, but also the beauty of the mountains, which is why the societies are so popular. The oldest group of islands in French Polynesia lies between the Marquesas and the Society Islands, and these are the Tuamotus. The mountains have completely eroded away, leaving only the protective barrier reef, which means that once you sail through a pass in the reef, you are in a lagoon surrounded by reef where active volcanoes used to be. As I stand in the middle of this atoll, it's almost impossible to imagine volcanoes once erupting in this very spot millions of years ago. The next atoll on my journey was Makemo, which is one of the more populous ones for locals, but not many cruisers come here as the anchorage isn't very good in front of the town. Makemo has a beautiful pass for snorkeling. We met up here with our friends from Tula and decided to join forces and go on a snorkel together. Most of the atolls have 1 or 2 passes that are navigable by boats. This is how we get in. and it also is amazing snorkeling if you time it right with the tide. You want a slack tide going into high water so that as the strong current begins to flow, it pushes you back into the atoll and makes a really nice drift dive as well. So we're in the pass right now and it's really cool. If you look through the water, you can actually see the edge of the coral shelf where it just drops off into the deeper pass. This is pretty typical of most passes. When you're a sailboat, you want to stay in the deep part, and when you're snorkeling, you want to stay right on the edge. You can see by looking at the water that there's actually quite a bit of current going on already. We were a bit late for slack tide, so it's coming in, and you can see all the different eddies and swirls and whirls as the current kind of does its own weird little thing over the coral. So we're not sure what we're going to get, but we're going to jump in anyway and see what happens. We are getting pushed a little undershore.
It should be alright.
I jumped in the water first, holding on to a long painter to the dinghy just to see how the current affected us when we were in the water. We are going to be drift diving with the dinghy, so we're all holding on to the painters and kind of taking it with us. But it's clear. Do you hear that sound in the background? That's the sound of a healthy, living reef. Scientists have found that if they play sounds of healthy living reefs, which sounds just like this, on dying reefs, it actually attracts fish and other organisms that come to the dying reef and make it healthy again. The pass in Makemo, though, doesn't need any help. It's teeming with wildlife. The current was pretty strong when we entered the pass, and it pushed us so quickly over the seafloor that we felt like little pieces of plankton just being swept up in the flow. After a bit, Ilya wanted a break, so he sunbathed in the Zodiac, spinning around in circles in this little back eddy while the rest of us continued snorkeling. The three of us grabbed onto a tow bridle while Ilya sat in the Zodiac and towed us back against the current so that we could do one more snorkel of the pass. It was a little bit intense. There was so much current the engine was barely able to make way against, and the only reason I was able to breathe was because I had my snorkel in. We did one more dive of the pass before we decided to call it a day. We'd been in the water a couple hours and we were all pretty tired and ready for some late lunch. Once back on my boat, life out of the water continued as usual, but the sound of the reef stayed in my ears. It's egg flipping day, so we never know when there are going to be eggs in the current place where we are. So I like to buy a lot at a time, and sometimes they come in flats like this. We flip them every couple days, and when they're in flats it's hard to flip them because you have to flip each individual egg. When it's in a carton, you just flip the carton over. Oh, this is a huge egg. And if you turn them every 2 or 3 days, it makes them last way longer. When eggs go bad, it's because the yolk falls down eventually with gravity against the side of the eggshell, and once it hits the side, that's when the egg starts to go rotten. So if you keep flipping them every couple days, it keeps the yolk stuck in the middle. And sometimes they crack underway, but it's also nice because you get a lot of eggs. And these ones too. Done. Thanks for watching this week's video. As I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're interested in following me on Instagram to see pictures of where I currently am, it's at Boat Lizard. Thank you so much to all of my patrons who are supporting me and making everything possible. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon, it's patreon.com/windhippie, and for a one-time donation, my PayPal is holly35@gmail.com. Thank you so much. That's so cool. Okay, what else? Tish, thank you for putting these videos from Dropbox, where I upload them onto YouTube. Dropbox is the only way I can get them up with my slow internet connection, and then she makes it possible for everyone else to see them. Thanks for your lovely comments, and I hope you guys are having an awesome new year, and yeah, I will see you in 2 weeks.